Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are referencing our reading of every one of the poems of Whitman's Leaves of Grass, the Deathbed Edition. We are now into Song of Myself, passage number 12. We have said already that sections 8 through 16 are sometimes referred to as the Great Catalog section. Whitman is journalist. He walked the city, he looked and he saw things, and we're going to see more of that happening here. Now, our assumption is you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, that you've found our Talks with Walt playlist. You were part of, I hope, our Inscriptions 24 poems discussion, as well as starting from Promenade. We worked through all 19 sections there, and we've been working up through section 11 of Song of Myself. So we now turn to this. It's really amazing how Whitman can pull this off with just really short lines. Passage 12. The butcher boy puts off his killing clothes, or sharpens his knife at the stall in the market. I loiter, enjoying his repartee and his shuffle and breakdown. Blacksmiths with grimed and hairy chests environ the anvil. Each has his main sledge. They are all out. There is a great heat in the fire. From the cinder-strewed threshold, I follow their movements. The lithe sheer of their waists plays even with their massive arms. Overhand the hammers swing, overhand so slow, overhand so sure. They do not hasten. Each man hits in his place. Now, I have already commented on the fact that one of the great lines of Song of Myself is from passage 4, both in and out of the game and watching and wondering at it. And of course, we were playing a game in the last passage, 11, where we have this woman who stands behind the blinds and watches some boys or some guys swimming, bathing, and she wants to go and be a part of them, and so she does in her mind. Now we'll have role reversal, and it will be the speaker, Whitman, who will now say, let me tell you the next thing I see. Notice it's a butcher boy. We've had children in cradles. We've had young men or women on the hay, and we've had a woman behind the blinds. Now we've got a butcher boy. He puts off his killing clothes, of course covered, or sharpens his knife at the stall in the market. So here we are now in the marketplace. Obviously, Whitman is going to see something that most of us are unfamiliar with because we just go to the grocery store and our meat is there. But in Whitman's day, you went into the market, you saw the animals as they were often being butchered. And then, of course, that word loiter, which will take us back to loaf, enjoying his repartee, right? That is to say, there's a certain kind of like witty comments that are a part of this, and his shuffle and breakdown. Now, our study with Norton's anthology will tell us that shuffle and breakdown. Shuffle is a slow or adagio dance with sliding movements, while breakdown is a rollicking, noisy dance. Both were familiar in popular entertainment and minstrelsy. So notice that Whitman himself is playing the game of suggesting that work can be understood as something akin to a dance. It's quite brilliant. It takes us back, obviously, to the Inscriptions poem, I Hear America Singing. Then we turn to the blacksmiths, and we cannot help but think about Hephaestus. And of course, our study of the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Aeneid. But especially, you'll remember, in the Iliad and the Aeneid, it will be Hephaestus that will bring together those huge giants that will then help to create the shields, right? The famous shields. So here, Whitman is playing around, and we have a certain kind of echo that's epic in its power. Blacksmiths, notice, with grimed and hairy chests. There's so much about Whitman paying attention to the chest region. Go back to our passage 5, right? The breastbone and all of that. Blacksmiths with grimed and hairy chests environ the anvil. What an amazing verb, environ. In other words, they become one with it, or they're around it, right? And you've got this anvil there. Each has his main sledge, the sledgehammer. They are all out, in the 1855 edition, by the way, there were a lot of ellipses here. They are all out. There is a great heat in the fire. Now, this will immediately make us think of Hephaestus, make us think of Phoenix, the phoenix bird coming out of the fire. Think about the ways in which fire has already been used a number of times in Leaves of Grass. We're going to see more and more of it as a symbol. From the cinder-strewed threshold, I follow their movements. In other words, notice, whereas before it was the woman behind the blinds in passage 11, now it's Whitman, or the speaker of this poem, watching from a little bit of a distance, the cinder-strewed threshold. I follow their movements. That is to say, they're hammering, right? The lithe sheer of their waist plays even with their massive arms. Can you hear all those S sounds as they're swinging these sledges? There is a powerful rhythm right here in the poem itself. Notice lithe, that is to say athletic, muscular. We're going to hear that whole notion again and again played out. Notice it's the emphasizing of their waists. In part 5 it was the hips. Here it's the waist. And then the very word plays. I mean, you can do something interesting and just read all of Leaves of Grass and just note every time the word play gets used. We're back to the game again, obviously. Plays even with their massive arms, emphasizing the physicality, right? And then we have overhand 3 times repeated, so the repetition that we're now growing quite familiar with in our study of Whitman, right? Overhand, the hammer swing. I mean, you can't read this without thinking, of course, of that opening book 1 of Virgil's Aeneid, right? Overhand, the hammer swing. By the way, in the 1855 it was roll. Now, why it would change the word from roll to swing is, again, this is fun to speculate. Overhand, the hammer swing. Overhead, so slow. Overhead, so sure. Notice the repetition of 3s. He loves his trinities from his study, of course, of St. Augustine. He'll come back to always play around with this. They're hammering, right? Notice the rhythm of the language itself is capturing what it is that he's witnessing. By the way, did you notice the word sure, slow, and sure? It's possible that he went with swing from roll simply because he wanted to go with swing, slow, sure. We have a lot of S sounds in this poem. And then he says something quite interesting. They do not hasten. Now just do a quick search of every poem we've read up to this point and notice how many times either the direct word hasten or quickly is used or something close to it. But notice here, they're very deliberate. They're not going to go too fast. Each man hits in his place. That is to say, there's a certain kind of excellence at play here. Whitman obviously celebrating the very idea that in American democracy, the workers are exact in what they do. Of course, in 2A, I think one of the major messages here, and it's one of the things that Whitman wants us to marvel at, is excellence, to approve of excellence. Watch someone doing a job and appreciating that job well. Whatever it is, it can be a surgeon and it can be a bricklayer. It can be someone who's sweeping a floor. It can be somebody making a burger. Pay attention to the excellence that's all around you and don't take it for granted. One of the clear messages. At 2B, the rhythms, did you hear it? I mean, just read this poem out loud and just hear the powerful rhythms, right? And of course, the equating of dancing with it, right? There's a certain kind of rhythm. And I really do believe this is another way to read Leaves of Grass. That is to say, the grass will come, it will go, the leaves will fall depending on the seasons. Everything is rhythmic, everything is cyclical, and to that degree, as we said in earlier lectures, everything has patterns and therefore religious. Again, the word religious just simply means to repeat, to do over and over again, right? At 3A, well, I really do think there's a lot of Homeric stuff going on here. I mean, obviously we're messing around as well with Prometheus and the whole idea of the blacksmiths and the hammering and all of that. It's an amazing thing what he pulls off in these few lines. I Hear America Singing is another thing we could write down at 3A. At 3B, I love this question, and I think it's one that we really have to appreciate because we need to learn to appreciate real quality work. When was the last time that you marveled at a job well done and you congratulated whoever it was that was doing it? I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I think it's something to be celebrated, but you don't always have to necessarily say it out loud. Just pay attention to all of the people in your life that are doing amazing work. And you can marvel at that. maybe loitering a little bit back in the threshold to pay attention to it so you don't get in the way. There is a little bit of that the speaker of this poem is just a little bit freaked out by the power and the strength of these blacksmiths as they're hammering away. Or, of course, you've got the young butcher boy who is able to move so beautifully. It looks as if it's dance. Well, of course, we are dancing as we move through. We could have called this Dances with Walt, right? I hope that you're enjoying all the things that we're seeing here through his eyes. Thank you.